This is where he shares his journey. The life lessons, challenges, and defining moments that shaped his voice as an author. Each episode explores the inspiration behind his books, the purpose in every story, and features select passages that bring his message to life. Meet his incredible friends and learn where his books are available, and how to stay connected as his future projects continue to unfold. So relax, settle into the groove, and let the jazz guide you into his world of storytelling and truth. Powered by SKST Radio Network and Street Grind Entertainment. Welcome to the Books by Anthony Owens podcast. This is where he shares his journey. The life lessons, challenges, and defining moments that shaped his voice as an author. Each episode explores the inspiration behind his books, the purpose in every story, and features select passages that bring his message to life. Meet his incredible friends and learn where his books are available, and how to stay connected as his future projects continue to unfold. So relax, settle into the groove, and let the jazz guide you into his world of storytelling and truth. Powered by SKST Radio Network and Street Grind Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast by Books by Anthony Owens podcast show. It's a pleasure to be back. It's hump day today. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. My day has been pretty good. Today I'm going to have a special guest on here. She's Miss R. Williams. Her book is called Love's Dark Reflections. It's about dealing with narcissism. So today I'm going to talk about bullying. I'm going to talk about domestic abuse. I'm going to talk about narcissism. And I'm going to read a bread box letter as well. So without further ado, first of all, let me start by saying bullying is a real serious issue. And a lot of children, even adults, go through bullying now with the cyber bullying and just, in school and just even at work, right? There are people being bullied. And that's a bad thing because a lot of times people they have a difficult time dealing with it sometimes. And sometimes they wind up killing themselves, snapping out, killing others. So we have to be mindful of how we treat people and look for signs of people that are being bullied and try to intervene any chance we get because they need that help, right? They need somebody to step in sometimes because maybe they don't feel brave enough or they don't have enough courage to be able to say, stop bullying me or talk to the right people. So if you see something, please try to help. So I've written a book about bullying for children. It's called Raw Power. And this book is about this child who walks to school every day because the school is nearby. And so when he goes to school, he gets bullied and oftentimes he'll leave school and he'll go home crying. And then as he's walking home, he'll pass by this gym where you see people working out and, lifting weights and things like that. And one day he goes into the gym and the guy there says, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And he runs out of the gym because he was scared. So he goes back to school and the bullying continues. And basically what happens is he goes into the gym one day and, all of a sudden he's able to work out, get bigger and stronger. And then all the bullies noticed that he was getting bigger. And all of a sudden they became afraid of him because they thought that he was going to do the same things that they did to him, right, back to them. And he didn't. He actually was nice enough to let them know that they too can go to the gym and get stronger and be big like he is. And so they became his friends. So it's a really, really endearing story. Very short book, but what I did with this particular book here, I left the story in here, but I took out all the colors and I made it into a coloring book so children would be able to color the different characters. Let me read this to you. It's a real short book. It says this book is dedicated to any child that has or is being bullied. We should all stand up to bullying. We should all stand up against bullying, excuse me. Ari loved, his name was Ari, and I gave him the same name as my grandson. Ari loved going to school. He had fun learning and playing with his friends. One day, there were some children in the school that started to bully Ari. Ari was sad and afraid of the bullies. He told his teacher and his parents, but the bullying did not stop. Ari walked home from school every day since he lived very close to the school. There was a gym that Ari would pass by as he walked home. The gym was called Raw Power. So let me tell you about Raw Power. So the name of the book, Raw Power, I wrote it with a guy named Diesel Ramos, and he was one of my friends on TikTok. And one day he said, "Hey, Ant," because he always called me Ant. He's a professional bodybuilder, a real big guy, right? I hadn't thought about doing a children's book or anything. He said, "Hey, let's do a book about a children's book about about lifting weights." And I said, "Okay, well, that's fine. I'll do it." And that's all he said. That was all he said. Didn't give me any other input, and so I ran with it. And since I knew that he was a professional bodybuilder, he had been in a couple of movies as well. I wrote the entire book, and he enjoyed it as well. So I want to give him his credit for even bringing up the idea of doing this. So it was his idea to do it. So I put him on the book as well. So his name is Diesel Ramos. So anyway, it says the gym was called Raw Power, and Ari would look inside of the gym every day. He would see the men and women working out, lifting weights. Ari would be in amazement as he watched the strong men and women with their big muscles. One day while walking home, Ari decided to go inside of the gym to get a closer look at the people he would see almost every day. As Ari entered the gym, one of the big men with big muscles asked, "What are you doing here, little man?" Ari was surprised and scared and immediately turned around and ran out of the gym. Ari's heart was beating fast as he ran all the way home. The bullying in school continued, and Ari was crying as he was walking home one day. Ari told himself that he was not going to take the bullying anymore. On his way home, Ari stopped at the gym, and when he entered, the same man with the big muscles asked him again, "What are you doing here, little man?" This time, Ari said, "I want to be big like you. I am tired of being bullied." The big man said, "Little man, I will help you." Ari was so happy that the big man was going to help him become big like him. Ari had the biggest smile on his face. The big man's name was Luke. Luke was very nice to Ari and showed him how to lift weights and how to develop his muscle mass. Every day, Ari would stop by the gym, and Luke would help him with the weights. Slowly, day by day, Ari and Luke would work out. After 15 days, Ari started to notice that his muscles were starting to get bigger and bigger. By day 30, Ari could see a big difference and was thrilled with joy. Going to the gym and working out gave Ari more confidence in himself, and he started to feel happy about himself. When Ari went to school, the other children noticed that Ari had big muscles and that he was no longer shy and quiet. The children that were bullying Ari would also notice that he had gotten bigger. All of a sudden, the bullies started to become afraid of Ari. They did not want to anger the big Ari. Ari saw that the bullies were now afraid of him. Instead of treating the bullies like they had treated him, Ari told them, "My friend Luke at the gym can help you become bigger too." The bullies now noticed that Ari was not angry with them and had offered to help them too. Now everyone was Ari's friend, including the bully. And at the end it says, Ari shows us that bullying is not fun and that no one deserves to be bullied. He also shows us that we can also forgive. So this is a good book for children from the ages of, a child to 10 years old, I say. I too was bullied in school, and a lot of people were bullied. And I had to fight a lot. When I went to high school, I remember that very well. I was very quiet, very shy. I was tall, skinny. I didn't bother anyone, didn't say much to anyone, kept to myself. But there was always people that wanted to make an example and try to beat up the big, tall, skinny, quiet guy. But that didn't happen. They would fight with me, try to, you know what bullies do, try to take your stuff. And I would fight them back. I wasn't scared. I just didn't want to be bothered. And then I don't even remember losing any fights, but then people would look at me like, why was I fighting someone smaller than me? And I always said to them, I didn't start the fight. They always did. There was always someone smaller that was, and you see it even to this day. Little people will always try to mess with big people for some reason. You normally don't see big people messing with people that are smaller. right? But that's just that Napoleon complex sometimes, and people want to be bad and all that. But the bottom line is, if you know someone who is being bullied, or if you're being bullied yourself, please tell someone. Don't go through this alone. Um, it's difficult, right? And the reason why I didn't say anything to my mother, because I didn't lose any other fights. Bullying was bad, but it wasn't like I was getting beat up or nothing like that. But at the same time, I can imagine those people that were getting beat up and had to deal with it and go home. And, how do you explain that to your mother or your father, or both of them? And then, sometimes they may say, some back in my day, they would say, go back and fight and don't come home, bruised up, don't lose. And so it's a real big issue, because now you're forcing the kid to fight. And now it creates a lot of problems, right? Because now the kid's got to go back and fight, and he or she is scared, and they may not be able to focus on school. There's a lot of things that can spiral out of control. So you got to handle this very cautiously and make sure that if someone that you know is being bullied, that you talk to them and try to get to the root of the problem. If someone needs to go up to the school and talk to the teachers and find out what can be done, then do that. And so, as I said earlier, we're going to talk about bullying, and then I want to talk about domestic abuse. So, as a child, witnessing my mother being slapped, hit, and those things that people do when they become violent, it's not a good look, right? As a child, you try to understand why would someone do it, and then secondly, you try to ask yourself, why does someone stay when that's happening, right? And those are two different scenarios, right? Because sometimes people that are hurt other people, right? And so those people that are not bullying, but being a domestic violence person, or someone who's abusive, a lot of times they've been hurt before, and hurt people sometimes hurt people. And I'm not making excuses for them, but that's just the reality of it. And so to see my mom go through that, it was really tough, right? And I was at a young age at the time, and there was not a whole lot I could do. And this guy's name was Greg. Let me read to you about Greg. I'm gonna put the glasses on. I don't want to mess this up. This is only for reading, y'all. I can see very well, for those who might wonder. Anyway, with everything that my mother had going on in her life, being broke as hell, giving money she didn't have to the church, and trying to feed 2 growing boys and herself, she still couldn't escape her sexual desires and need for companionship. She needed somebody in her life too, right? And as a child, you don't think about that, right? You don't think that she needs some companion, somebody she could talk to, somebody she can provide in. As a child, all you think about is your mother being there. In retrospect, I know now that she needed and wanted someone to hold her at night, make love to her, and tell her that everything would be all right. My mother met a man named Greg while going to church one Sunday morning. James and I saw him talking to her while in church, but didn't think anything about it. I assumed they were having the same boring conversations adults usually have at church, or so I thought. 3 days later, we see the same man at our apartment. I thought that he was there to maybe talk more about church stuff with my mother. Boy, was I wrong. My mother introduced him to us, and he proudly said, "Hey, boys, my name is Greg. I'm your mother's friend." He said it with a smirk on his face and smiled as if he knew something that we didn't know. My mother loved to smile, showing her large gap top teeth. I used to have a gap. I hated that. Oh my God, I did. Yeah. I thought that gap teeth looked better on females than it did on men. I inherited the same large gap that my mother had, and I hated it. But her teeth made her distinctively appealing. My mother also stood out because she was 5'10" and a ferocious 165 pounds. So my attractive, tall mother meets this stout, short man. He was probably 5'4" if he stood on a cinder block. He was so stocky. I bet he weighed about 250 pounds. James and I called him Mr. Fat. I know it was wrong, but as a kid, you say stuff, right? You say cruel things, you know. But anyway, he never heard us say it, but he was polite to my mother at first. He would bring over groceries and would visit her at least 3 times a week. He never said much to James or to me other than hello. Within a few months, this seemingly pleasant guy went from being caring to callous and cruel. He became abusive towards my mother. I would hear them arguing, then he would hit or choke her. And I could hear her in between breaths telling him, Greg, please stop. At the time Greg's scary behavior started, I was only 9 years old. James was 7. All we could do was cover our ears and cry as we sat in the next room, terrified for our mother. I was overwhelmed with the feeling of complete helplessness when my mother was being abused. Afterwards, I felt as if I should have. Well, my mother recently passed away, and this is really hard. I think about all the stuff that she went through and how difficult it was. And reading this now is just it's doing something to me. I need to take a break for a second. I'll be back.
From the heart of the coast where the waves rise high, Bay magazine we lift and amplify. Stories of love, of strength, of pride. Giving back, standing tall side by side. We are the rhythm, we are the voice. Community rising, making bold choice. On short drive, we shine, we soar. Bay magazine, forever, evermore.
Been a SKST Radio Network production, powered by Street Grind Entertainment. Music by Beats by Bro. Filmed live at SKST Radio Network TV and Podcast Studios.
Yo, 1 2 1 2 in a place to be. What's happening, people? What I miss? With that being said, man, I go by the name of Mike Dice, Beats by Bro. Yeah. What up? Okay. Peace. Okay.
Hey.
With that, y'all, check it out. What's up? Huh? I don't know.
No.
different ever feel like a burden? Have you ever faced someone who tries to bring you down? You're not alone. Many kids face bullying, but there's a way to rise above it. In Raw Power, meet Ari, a young boy who discovers his inner strength. With hard work and dedication, he builds his confidence and learns to stand up for himself. Raw Power is a heartwarming story that teaches kids the importance of self-belief, personal growth, and forgiveness. It shows them that they can overcome bullying and become resilient, kind-hearted individuals. Empower your child to face challenges with courage and compassion. Get your copy of Raw Power today.
Welcome back, everyone. I had a little technical difficulties. I'm trying to bring in another guest, and so ran into some issues, and still trying to bring her in. Let me finish what I was saying. Hello. It says, within a few months, this seemingly pleasant guy went from being caring to callous and cruel. He became abusive towards my mother. I would hear them arguing. Then he would hit or choke her, and I could hear her in between breaths telling him, "Greg, please stop." At the time Greg's scary behavior started, I was only 9 years old. James was 7. All we could do was cover our ears and cry as we sat in the next room, terrified for our mother. I was overwhelmed with the feeling of complete helplessness when my mother was being abused. Afterwards, I felt as if I should have done something to help her. You know, when you're young, you see somebody that you love getting hit or whatever, you want to jump in, but I was real young. So, James and I would talk about how we hated what he was doing to her, and we wished that he would just leave and never come back. James said to me, "Man, why won't Mama just kick his ass since she's taller than him?" "The dude looks like a house," I replied. James fell silent. Even at a young age, I realized that Greg's abuse of my mother was hurting James. I had been so worried about my mother at first that I overlooked the effect that all of this was having on my little brother. I saw the two of us as tough young men who had to protect our mother. The reality of it was that we were little kids and had to deal with our own pain caused by being unable to change things. We saw and heard our mother being physically and emotionally abused while we couldn't do anything to protect her. We went to bed many nights, baffled, angry, and afraid. It goes on to say, the abuse continued on and off for almost a year. My brother and I were too young to understand why a man would physically abuse a woman and why a woman would stay in a relationship that was so toxic. James would ask me, why is Mama still with him? I have no idea, I replied. I really didn't get it. Then there came a day when I couldn't take it anymore. Greg hit my mother in front of me, and I picked up a broom and swung it and hit him across his head. But he just swatted at me like I was an annoying fly. I fell to the floor, still full of rage, but more frightened. Greg didn't live with us. He never took my mother out for dinner, a movie, or any place for that matter. His occasional grocery purchases for my mother had become almost non-existent. In fact, he started to mooch. Greg was broke. As far as I could tell, he didn't have a bank account, credit card, or a car. James and I used to talk about how Greg was using our mother. Sure, our mother didn't have much, but Greg seemed to have even less. I remember James saying, I bet Greg doesn't even know how to drive. He's probably too short, I replied. James and I both laughed. Humor helped us get through the time of Greg, through the time of Greg. So, when you're going through a lot of difficult situations, trauma, witnessing different, abuse and all this stuff, a lot of times the only thing you do have is, your prayers, you have laughter. You have to find something that keeps your mind off of the insanity, keep your mind off the trauma, keep your mind off the terrible things that you're going through. And even to this day, right, when you're going through difficult situations, a lot of times you can't just waddle in whatever trauma or whatever pain, whatever you're going through. over and over, it'll drive you crazy, right? And it's kind of non-productive, if you will, because it doesn't allow you an avenue to escape. It doesn't give you room to just get away from it, even for a little while, right? You can't just stay in it constantly. And it says, I remember, let's see, my sister, Rhonda, was born in January. Rhonda was a pretty baby with longer hair than I thought she would have had because my mother's hair wasn't long and her father, Greg, had a receding hairline and not much hair. I noticed that people would stare openly at his unforgettable attempt at an afro. I never understood why he didn't just cut it off, what little there was, and please the crowds. So I'm gonna skip a little bit. And then now that my sister was born, so now our family situation had gone from bad to worse. Even at that age, I knew that my mother was lonely and needed some adult companionship, but did she really have to pick a man who would turn out to be another deadbeat dad? My mother had been struggling financially when she met Greg. I guess she thought that Greg would provide some measure of support. Wrong again. My mother used to tell James and me that Greg was in between jobs. He wasn't working when they met. It was hard to be in between jobs when you didn't have a job in the first place. How are you going to be in between jobs and you didn't have a damn job? He wasn't working when they met, and I'm doing the same thing. And it was hard to be in between jobs when you didn't have a job in the first place. He was constantly looking for work. Hell, even a blind squirrel can find an acorn occasionally. Why couldn't this grown-ass man find any real work? Life is hard, but it's even harder if you're not motivated and persistent. I was a kid and had found work. I wonder if Greg had seriously tried to find work. That, to me, that was a very interesting chapter because that was my first experience in seeing domestic abuse. Well, I take that back. I had seen it before from my other uncles. They were all abusive. All the men in my family, except maybe one cousin, they were all abusive. I don't know where they got it. Well, I guess they got it from their father because my grandfather was abusive. And so that's something that that carried on over and over from generations apparently, but I broke that cycle, right? Because as a child, I saw it, I knew that it was wrong, and I despised it. I couldn't in my mind imagine or understand why would someone beat up on someone, right? You don't have a right to hit anyone, but yet they were beating up these women in my family who were loving them, who were providing for them, and it was just wrong on so many levels. So I'm glad it didn't turn out like that. And if you're being abused, there are some shelters you can contact. There's resources that are available, and you don't have to go through this alone. Just like with bullying, sometimes we try to hide things from people, and sometimes people notice it, right? They notice that you're acting different. They notice that the scars are evident, and there's a lot of things that people see that you may not be aware of, but we as individuals on outside, we can see some things that are different, right? Your character changes, your personality. You're not the same bubbly person anymore. You always seem timid. You're afraid. You're scared. There's a number of different telltale signs that you can see when the person may be going through something. So if you're that person, try to get some help. Talk to somebody. Call the police. Do what you have to do, but don't put yourself and don't put your children through the things that I've gone through and then the things that they're going through, because they got to live with that long after your relationship ends with whomever you're with. I think it's time for a break. Hopefully by then my guest will be here. And now, wait a minute, there's no time for a break. Well, hello everyone. Your mic is muted, Ms. Strickland.
Hi.
Okay, how are you today?
Anthony.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Everyone, this is Miss Strickland. We call her Miss Strickland, but her book is, her pen name is R.R. Williams, and the book is Love Stock Reflection. Miss Strickland, can you tell us about your book, and hello, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Good.
My book is Love Stock Reflection. Surviving a Decade of Covert Narcissism. And it's a memoir about an experience that I had, a 10-year domestic violence situation. And it was with the covert narcissist that did a lot. Let's say that. But the book, what it does is it tells the story, but as it's telling it, it also guides the person through if they're seeing those same things in their relationship. And if they're seeing it, they may need to take a pause, step back, and think about, is this the way that this is supposed to look? It also teaches them if they figure out that this is what it is, that they may need to walk away. And it tells them how to do that safely. Because sometimes in a domestic violence situation, it can turn deadly. And that's something we don't want.
So let me ask you a question. When you were going through what you had to deal with, were your kids seeing some of those things as well?
Well,
And if they did,
my daughters were, but they wanted to satisfy mom. And since I was saying everything was okay, everything's fine. My oldest daughter, at one point, she said, "Mom, every time I drop my daughter off, you're tired. Why is it that you're so tired?" And it's 7 o'clock in the morning. But what was happening and what I didn't tell them was this person would be screaming all night and cursing, excuse me, and cursing, and I would have to deal with listening to that all night. So I wasn't getting any sleep. And when she would drop my grandbaby off, because I homeschooled during that time, when she dropped her off, I was tired. So
and that
yeah,
was from the arguing, going back and forth with him, right?
yes,
So,
that
so,
was
so let me ask you a question. So let me ask you a question then. So even as a child, when I saw my mother was going through the abuse, um, I questioned, why did she stay in there? Why did she allow it to continue to happen? Do you know why you probably dealt with it for as long as you have?
yes.
Looking
Well,
back,
I take accountability for some because I had just gotten a divorce from a 16-year marriage. So I was 2 years out, and I was determined not to let another relationship fail. That's one thing. So that's my accountability. Um, but the second thing was I didn't see the behavior until the 6th year in, because he was working, I was busy tending to grandbaby. I had a new grandbaby, so I'm all excited. And I was going to school. I was getting my second master's. So I really wasn't paying attention. And then when the person retired and was home all day, that's when I started saying, this doesn't look right. Something's not right about this, because it was cursing, screaming, just all kind of stuff was going on. And I was like, this isn't right. But then when you try to leave, because I left 2 times, and on average it takes the person 7 times before they'll completely leave. So I left 3 times. As a matter of fact, the second time I put all of my stuff in storage, and it stayed there for 6 months. But the person was so charismatic. um, he went into counseling. We went into couples counseling. They do everything that you want them to do, still with the intention of, I say, trying to destroy you, really,
control
because
and destroy, right?
yeah, yeah, that's what that is.
And so as a child and as an adult, like when a child sees that, and obviously, the parent or yourself going through what you've gone through, I believe that you both can benefit from counseling, right? And a lot of times, those children don't get counseling, right? Because,
Right.
I've alluded to this before, that a lot of times when a child is witnessing this domestic abuse and all these different things, the parent is so inundated with trying to get out of what they're going through that oftentimes the children are left, to fend for themselves and have to deal with all this emotional and psychological stuff that they have to deal with, right? And so many times that person who's going through it, like yourself, you might get the counseling because you definitely need it, and you need to be able to take care of yourself and then take care of your children, but also those children need it as well. A lot of
Right.
times they get left behind. What do you think about that?
Well, I am 4 years out. Let me say that, and I have a third one that will be 38 in June, and a daughter that will be 34. Well, she turned 34 on the 12th of June, and the other daughter on the 3rd of October she will be 38. So I have a 34 and 38, and then my 10-year-old granddaughter, because I was homeschooling her, she heard stuff, and children feel stuff. She felt the tension in the air. So once I left, this is what I did. I was in counseling, and then my grown daughters went into counseling because I found out later that they lived with the fear that they were going to get a call, that something was going to happen to me. So we went through counseling for that. But I also made sure that my 10-year-old granddaughter was in counseling. And the reason being is I want a productive adult. I don't want her to be anxious or scary. It affects children even when we don't think that it affects them, and like you said, we're trying to get out, it affects our kids, and they grow up to be nervous and anxious and not knowing how to move about in society. So I recommend counseling for everybody that's involved in it.
And I do too, right? And so you mentioned earlier that it normally takes about, on average, about 7 times a person leaving before they decide to actually leave for real. So what are some of the reasons why a person would stay, up until that 7th time or however longer?
So with this situation for me, let me tell you, for me, it was the fact that I'm the only pawpaw that your granddaughter knows because her grandfather had passed. So they will use the children, they will use finances, they will use public shaming. Because I remember at one point the person even called my brother and said, "Your sister's acting crazy again." And my brother, when he got on the phone, he said, "Sis, what's going on?" And I hadn't told anybody what had happened, what was going on. And I started crying. And I said, "If I stay here another year, I'm going to be dead." And he said, "What do you need?" I said, "I don't need anything. I just need to know that you guys know that it's not me. I need for you to understand that I'm trying to get out of a situation, and it's hard because emotionally I'm wrapped up with this person, and financially, because I was also being financially abused. Financially, I'm wrapped with this person. So you have a lot of things that keep you tied to a person. And if you are a mother that is a stay-at-home mother, now you're looking at, where am I going to go? You're looking at finances. You're looking at, how am I going to raise these kids without their dad or their mom? You can do it. You can do it.
Right, and a lot of times, a lot of the people that were in your situation, they feel like they have a lack of resources, so they continue to stay there because they feel like they're basically they have no out, right? They have nowhere to turn, and so a lot of times they stay in there because they feel like they're trapped.
Right.
And that's bad in itself, because when you get to a point where you feel like you have nowhere to go, a lot of bad things can happen, right? Violence can happen. You can turn around and kill him or whatever, or her, or you could lose your mind. There's a number of bad things that can happen when you feel trapped. So, and I think, and I'm quite sure you might agree with this, the biggest thing is to make sure that you take care of yourself mentally, right? Especially like once you decide to get out for real, to seek some help, because it's going to be on your mind constantly, right?
Right. But you know what, Anthony, too, when people say, "Well, I don't have any resources, I don't know how to get out, I don't know what to do," there are resources in the community. And if, such as with my situation, I did get a restraining order on the person, and I did find myself in under the confidential address for North Carolina, so that the person couldn't find out where I was. There's resources out there.
Yeah.
I think the person just has to make their mind up. I'm leaving. But I do want to say plan. I don't want to say just jump up and run out unless you have to. So I do want to say plan.
Right. Because there's some instances where people just have to leave because it's beyond, your safety. And I think I've mentioned this before on my live, that I ran into a person who had been in an abusive situation for like 27 years. And her kids had to witness that for a long period of time. And I had just met her, and she had only been out of that relationship maybe 2 weeks at that. And when she said that if it was strange to feel safe, because she didn't have to worry about someone bothering her, beating her up and all this, and it was strange to feel safe because explain that to me.
You said, could you imagine? You started to say, can you imagine that? It
Well,
is.
yeah.
It's strange to not wake up with somebody screaming or the TV or the radio blaring. When I first left my situation, and I keep going back to that because I can only speak to that. When I first left, I would start an argument because I moved in with my daughter at first, and my oldest daughter. And every Sunday I would pick. I mean, it was something going on. And finally she said, Mom, every Sunday, it's almost like you start an argument. You're trying to start an argument. I had to sit with that because what was happening was, because I homeschooled, he tried to wait until after the grandbaby left at nighttime to do all the crazy. And then on Saturday and Sunday, oh, it was live. He had Crown Royal and he was drinking. He was throwing stuff, screaming, hollering at the top of his lungs. So on Sunday, my nervous system had not settled down. My nervous system was still up in a life or flight mode. And it is strange. I didn't even know, and I laugh about it now. I didn't even know what I liked to wear. I mean, before I went into the relationship, I was that girl. Then when I came out of the relationship, I was like, well, what colors do I like? What do I like to eat? Because I always tried to keep the peace so that it wouldn't be a something going crazy in the house.
And let me get this clear with everybody that's listening or watching. Domestic abuse it can go both ways. A man can get abused as easy as a woman can, right? So
Yeah.
it's not right either way. And so, unless you're actually going through it or unless you're witnessing it, sometimes it may not be easy to understand.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times people always question, why do you stay so long? Why do you stay? That's a general thing that I've heard for so long. You can never say what a person will do or how long you're going to stick with anything or what's going to make a person snap. You never know what the breaking point is until you find out for sure, right? So just because somebody else stays in something longer than you think that you would have, you don't really know how long you would have stayed in it until it happens.
But Anthony, also because the chaos that's going on with these situations, you may even lose track of time because after I did get out, I can't even imagine myself staying in something as volatile and toxic for 10 years. But because of the chaos and because of whenever it was a situation, they would come back and, oh, I'm sorry, I'm pressured at work. I was drinking. There's all these excuses. And as a woman, even men, I would say men too, you want to make that relationship work. So you want to figure out for a long time, you think, what am I doing? What do I need to do different? It's not you. It's not you. And that's another thing I wanted to say. I hate when society says, well, why did you stay so long? If it was that bad, I had a lawyer to say that to me in court. If it was that bad, why did you stay? I stayed because we had our finances tied together. I stayed because I loved him. I stayed because I hoped that he would get himself together. I stayed because I wanted my granddaughter to feel comfortable around a man. Those are reasons that society doesn't look at. I stayed as a mother. Let's say if I was a single mother, I stayed so that my children would have somewhere to stay. I stayed because my children need to be fed. We need to really stop blaming victims in our society because we do that a lot.
Yes, we do. And, and like I said earlier, a lot of times people don't know how difficult something is unless they're actually going through it themselves. And it's easy for people to judge and come up with their own ideas and thoughts with a situation that they have nothing to do with, right?
Right.
And I know you've heard me repeat this over and over on my live about people minding other people's businesses, right? I said this before. Just because you don't like the way a person lives, how they look, who they worship, who they love, right? What color they are.
Yeah.
You don't have a right to treat them poorly. You don't have a right to treat them unfair. You don't have a right to make them feel bad. That's not, you don't, you need to worry about how your life is going. What are you doing to make your life better for you and your
Mhm.
family? And forget about everybody else's.
Right.
Mind your business and live your life and let people enjoy their life the best way that they can.
Yeah. That's it.
Wow.
But look,
You know,
today I was talking to a group of judges. Me talking to some judges.
uh,
And that was one of the questions when you said that, well, why did you stay? That was one of the questions that they were asking. And they weren't asking me. They were saying when people are in those situations, why do they stay? Um, and I tried to explain it to them. I'm hoping that I got it through. And they were like, wow, you never think that someone that is accomplished, because see, people think that it's only poor people that go through abuse. No, people that are rich, people that are accomplished, people that are um, work that go to work every day, people that you would see at church. It happens everywhere. It happens everywhere that there's a house and a husband and a wife, or a partner and a wife, and a partner and a husband. It happens everywhere. Yeah,
yeah.
it's not just one thing. So that experience was good for me today because it um it helped me to realize how strong I've become. That's what I want to say, because I was able to do it without being shaky. you know, I was able to say, as a matter of fact, this is how that is. And I felt good about it.
And you know what, Ms. Strickland, I hate the fact that you had to go through that, but I'm glad that you've grown and blossomed and you didn't allow that to stop you from being who you are, right? And I
Right.
had the pleasure to know you, and I'm honored to be your friend, to be part of the family. You know, that's a good feeling. So,
Yes. Yes,
um,
you are.
yeah, I know, right? So before I want to go ahead and read, you know, I got the bread box letter. I want to read one. It's a short one, so I want to ask your opinion as well. So, for those who's listening, the bread box letter is something I do on my social media platform, particularly TikTok, which I'm not going to be going live on for a minute. I'm going to take a break. I read this like every Wednesday, and what it is letters that people send to me anonymously. I read it to my panel. Miss Strickland is part of it. She's my right hand, and she's one of the moderators. She's amazing. I have a few others. I have Jess Mama. I have um, I have a brain fart. Who am I
Cornbread,
moderating?
Onyx,
Corn,
cornbread. You want me to name them?
Cornbread. He's not a moderator,
CC.
but yeah, yes, yeah. I have I have a brain fart. But anyway,
You have
they
a
send me
lot of
letters.
people that
Yeah, but
support
I'm just talking
you.
about the moderators right now. I want to give them a shout out and say how much I
Okay.
appreciate them and all that, right? You, Onyx, right? Just Mama, Pamela. But anyway, so when they send these letters to me, I read it to the panel and we talk about, we come up with solutions, ideas, suggestions on how they should resolve whatever issue they're going through. A lot of times people, will revert back to counseling, therapy, speaking to someone. We'll even give them different resources that they can try to go to help fix their issues. And it's been really, really helpful for a lot of people because they were right back in and tell us what happened and how things have turned out. And so I enjoyed doing that, doing the Red Box letter. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started on this one. It's a really short one. It says, I have been in a relationship for several years with someone I love deeply. On most days, things are good. We support each other, enjoy spending time together, and have built a life that many people would probably admire. However, there's one issue that continues to create tension between us. My partner believes that because we have been together for so long, we should spend nearly all of our time, all of our free time together. I, on the other hand, believe that healthy relationships still require individual interests, personal space, and time with friends and family. Whenever I want to spend time pursuing a hobby, visiting a friend, or simply having some time to myself, my partner takes it personally and feels rejected. This often leads to arguments, hurt feelings, and misunderstandings. The truth is that my desire for personal time has nothing to do with loving my partner less. In fact, I believe it helps me be a better partner. My question to the panel is this: how do couples find the right balance between togetherness and independence? Is it unreasonable to want personal space in a committed relationship, or should partners expect to spend most of their free time together? Let's start with the first question. So, how do couples find the right balance between togetherness and independence? Well, that's something that you guys gonna have to agree upon, right? Because if you take away somebody's free time, the things that they love doing, you're taking away their identity of who they are as an individual. You don't have the right to do that. No one has the right to do that. That person should still have their individual life, right? The things that they enjoy doing. It's not like they're out there meeting someone else or trying to get rid of you. It's like they're just trying to enjoy what they've been doing for probably some time way before you even came on the scene. What do you think about that, Ms. Brigham?
I think that's a good one, but I would start out with communication. Has she communicated or he communicated that to the person? It's not that I'm trying to get away from you, it's that I am trying to still enjoy my individuality.
Yeah. And she goes on to say, is it unreasonable to want personal space in a committed relationship?
No, no.
So, have you ever met someone who's been in a relationship so long and maybe even in a controlling relationship where when you speak to this person or you see that person again, you don't even remember who they were before, but they're not the same person they used to be, right? They don't like the things that they used to like. They're just totally different. That the character of that person has changed. They're not the bubbly person they used to be, the outgoing person that they used to be, the fun person, right? They're none of that anymore because all that has been sucked out of them because they've been consumed by their relationship, the kids, and life, right? And sometimes that happens, but sometimes it's something that's nefarious, right? It's something that partner did on purpose. You
Hmm.
understand what I'm saying? And so and that's a part of the control stuff, the narcissism, right? Where they kind of take away your identity so they can
Right.
control you, take away what you enjoy so they can control you, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree with that. I think that you definitely need a balance, but I also think that if the person and see, I'll say an unhealthy relationship in a minute. That's unhealthy
It
because the
is.
person should want you to be who you are, and they should applaud you and support you as you are who you are, because you were a person before you met them. And I think that in not all cases, but in a lot of cases, when the Anthony,
Yeah, your signal is weak.
I can't hear you. Something happened.
I hear you, but I can't see you. You can't.
Okay, I hear you. When the person is trying to smother you,
Uh-huh.
that's control. And you really want to be controlled?
Well, let me tell you this. When you're used to it, it becomes your norm. And I've said this on numerous occasions that you can get used to misery. You can get used to a terrible situation. You can get used to a lot of things that you normally would not if you hadn't gone through it for so long. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Um, and when you in a bad relationship, and that's all you know, that's all you've been exposed to for so long, that's your new norm, and everything seems okay to you, but really it's not. Well, in your mind, you might feel like it's okay because that's what you're used to, and you
Right.
won't recognize it until you're out of it that it was bad, right? That it was not how it's supposed to be.
I agree with you. I agree with that. But
Um,
some people don't even realize that they are in a situation, Anthony, until um, like Marsha, one of our friends is Marsha, and I went to a women's conference with her in Knoxville, and we had a 50-year-old lady walk up to us. And she walked up to Marsha and she said, "You know what? I'm. It's been 50 years, and I didn't realize I was being abused in a relationship."
Wow. And that goes back to what I was saying, right? You've been dealing
Yeah,
with it so long, you didn't even realize it, right?
yeah,
And initially you did, right? And you may have, said something about it. You may have even fought back. But the longer you stay in it, right, and the more persistent that person is, that the aggressor is, and then it breaks you down to a point where you don't fight anymore, and then you just accept, right? So that fight or flight is gone. All you got
yeah,
now is you're just accepting it. That's your new norm. And
yeah.
so when you do, like I said, you don't realize it until you're out of it, and you're looking back and saying, you know what? Wow, I can't believe I dealt with that for that long.
Right. So to the person that wrote that letter, I would try to communicate that I need that balance. I would try to communicate to my partner that I need that balance, and see how they react. Um, if it's not the reaction that you think is appropriate, you might want to start distancing. You might want to figure out, is this really your person?
Well, you know what, and I agree, because when she says in this letter, right, it says, whenever I want to spend time pursuing a hobby, visiting friends, or simply having some time to myself, my partner takes it personally and feels rejected. So that's a feeling that he has that, for whatever reason, it says this often leads to arguments, hurt feelings, and misunderstandings. So I believe, based on this, that she has already tried to talk to this person, and no avail. What's
Yeah,
going on?
because
You're a lot. Okay. You having some issues with your mic?
yeah,
Okay, no better. Now you want to say something?
it's something. No, it's something going on with my mic. So I'm gonna just let you talk. But I just think that they need to really look at their relationship. They need to really look at it.
Well, yeah, right now you sound good. And you're right. And so this has been an interesting live. Would you like to come back again and visit me on this show?
Yes,
You would? Okay. And
you
what
know
we'll
I'll
do,
come back.
if you don't mind, you can be my co-host, and we'll bring up some different topics. So everybody wants
That'll
to
work. But you're gonna give me You're gonna give me more notice. I know that much. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I can do that. So right now, I think I'm going to invite you again next week, but we'll definitely talk about it. No, I hope everybody have a safe holiday weekend. Please be mindful. There's a book again. It's R. Williams, Love, Dark Reflection. Get your copy. Get your copy of her book. Get your copy
You
of my
could have
book as
picked a
well.
better picture. Who picked that picture? I'm gonna get you.
I think this is the picture. It doesn't show anything other than your eyes and your hair. So we're good. You got a lot worse pictures. Okay, now are you happy with that one?
Thank you. See, that's the fluffy me. I like the fluffy me. Thank you.
Oh, you're so vain. You probably think the song is about you. But anyway,
This was fun.
so please, everybody, have a safe weekend, and I appreciate it. And I'll see you on my next live. And thank you. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Streeter, for hanging out with me.
Thank you for having me. Have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Books by Anthony Owens podcast show. We hope this was a conversation that truly inspired you and gave you something meaningful to carry forward. We appreciate you spending this time with us, learning, growing, and embracing knowledge that truly matters. Join us next week for another powerful and uplifting episode of the Books by Anthony Owens podcast show. Until then, stay healthy, stay encouraged, and keep turning the pages of life.